available for you as a reference point and anybody else that couldn't make it today. That's why we're recording the session. So this is the webinar to complement the pre-recording that we did, and a really good opportunity for you to ask questions and answers. So my name is Lisa Kirchhoff. I've hopefully met most of you before. I'm a GP and I'm the lead for the Stage 2 GP programme.
And I'm Layla Abdullah. I'm a GP and I'm the Deputy Stage 2 lead.
Oh, Yvonne, you're on mute.
There you go. Yvonne Batson-Wright, Stage 2 Liaison and Support Lead.
I don't think you can start a Zoom meeting without telling somebody that they're on mute or asking everybody to mute themselves.
Okay.
So,
Actually.
Not over yet.
What we will ask to do is, if everybody could actually mute themselves for the time being,
4 minutes,
to
sorry.
limit any background noise, I can hear somebody at the moment. I do have the power to mute you all if I need to, but we would love to see your faces. So if you could have your video on, that would be great. And then we'll be using.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, I might need to mute actually. So mute all. Okay, and then you can actively unmute yourselves. Layla and Yvonne, I'm afraid I've muted you as well, so you'll need to unmute yourselves. So it's really lovely to see you all, and we want to welcome you. Obviously, we usually really enjoy doing this in person. It's a lovely opportunity to socialise, and we're sorry that this year that's just not possible, but we're really looking forward to the next opportunity that we will be able to have to see you all in person. So welcome back to the programme for those of you that talked to us before, and welcome to our new tutors as well. So we thought we'd start with a little icebreaker, it does feel a bit cheesy, but I think we've got to do it. So what we thought we could do is definitely need your videos on for this, and I'm going to stop screen sharing so that we can see all of your contributions. Grab an item that's in arm's reach and hold it up to your screen, and then Yvonne, our chief judge, is going to pick out the really interesting ones, and perhaps you can say a couple of words about them. So Yvonne, if you put the gallery view on.
Yeah, I can see everyone now. Yeah.
Oh, caramel truffles, Farah.
Oh my gosh. Nice. Is that a B&F? Nice blue card. Mug with pens. Piam, that looks quite intriguing. I'm sure that is. Well, actually, I should hold mine up, shouldn't I? Even though I'm judging, I'll hold mine up anyway, which is this.
What's that, Anita? That looks interesting.
Anita, yeah. Oh gosh, it's too tough. It's.
Go on, Yvonne, put somebody on the spot. Get them to explain it.
Okay, Piam, what have you got there, please?
I have a set of coasters from Colombia, which are
So in the true sense of teaching and encouraging the whole group, I would say thank you all for holding something up. Because if I was doing this with students, I'd have to say thank you to all the students so they don't feel deflated. I saw you all retreat when I asked Piam what he had. Thanks, Piam. And I think, did you say Layla Anita?
Yeah, I was just wondering what that was. It looked like an ice cream cone.
This looks like.
Oh, Anita, you're on mute.
Oh, I'm on mute, sorry.
Oh, it's very low.
You're not. It's just the volume's a little bit low. Sorry, you're not on mute, but you just we couldn't hear you very well.
Can you hear me now?
Just about.
Just about.
Okay. Something one of my kids have made. I think it's a flower of some sort, or a space rocket. Not entirely.
Isn't it like a palm tree to me?
Not sure.
Oh,
creative.
Very creative.
I think. Is there anybody else that had anything that we noticed? Intriguing.
Or is anybody dying to share a story about their one? We don't want you to go away frustrated from this experience.
Or deflated.
Unmute yourselves.
Okay, well, as chief judge, I think it has to be Anita's child that they met. You know, I think, you know, what do you all think? I think so. I think you could do the clap function in your reactions down here. There we go. So well done to your, what's the name of your daughter or son, Anita?
Dylan.
Dylan, okay, well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Lovely. So thanks everyone for participating and humouring us with that. That's great. So just a little bit of an outline. So obviously we want to keep this interactive, but we thought we'd put a little bit of structure in so that we can sort of highlight any learning needs that you have or questions that you might have. So we're going to do a little quiz, and it's also just a bit showcasing different ways that you can make things interactive, just to give you some ideas to go away with. So the quiz is going to be paired with a question and answer. The quiz is competitive, and I think there's a leaderboard function that I've not used before. I don't know if it's going to work, but you are going to be under time conditions. It's all going to be quite exciting. And then Yvonne's going to talk through Keats, our favourite topic of every year. And then we will have a break, and then we're going to get you into little breakout rooms to talk through some scenarios, and then bring you back together to share what your thoughts were about those scenarios. And we thought they'd sort of be typical issues that have either come up before or might come up this year under the kind of new pressures that we're under, really. So this is just a bit of a breakdown of what we feel the main components of the programme are, and we're going to try and address those in the quiz and the questions and answers. And the first question we're going to ask you, for you to start milling over, is what would you like to get out of today? And we'll do our very best to address that with you. And the best way for you to tell us this is if you log on your mobile phone to menti.com, and then if you bear with me a minute, I'm going to beautifully toggle to my next screen. Okay. So I'm hoping that you can now all see a screen that says go to www.menti.com and use the code 9475631. Is that all working okay?
Sorry, where do I put the code in?
So when you go in, it should ask you for it.
Menti.com.
So Lisa,
I've opened it up in the
screen.
Yes, I'm sorry. I've just suddenly lost everything. Bear with me one moment. Hang on. Sorry. Apologies for this. I'm going to try again. So I can see some of you have already started sharing your answers. I just seem to have lost the screen that it's actually coming from. Is that coming up on the screen share now?
Not yet.
I see where it is. This is the dangers of two monitors. It's kind of gotten lost in the ether between the two monitors. So here we go. Is that okay now?
There it is. Yeah, got it.
Lovely. Apologies for that. So
okay, it says log in, and then?
And then you put the code in. So the code, it should give you, no, sorry, so you need to go to menti.com. So if you go to Mentimeter, it'll ask you for a user login. If you just type in menti.com, it'll ask you for a code.
Oh. I've got to put my email address and password and all this.
No. So just delete what you've got in your web browser on your mobile and just write menti.com.
Is it menti.com or mentimeter.com?
No, menti.com.
So just at the top of
MENTI.
Yeah,
That's
just
right.
at the top of the screen there, and I put it in the chat function as well.
Okay, Mentimeter, join a presentation.
That's it, exactly it. And then this should come up.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, what's the code?
The code is on the screen in front of you, 9475631.
9475631. Okay, let's see. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I've got it here. Yeah.
Well done.
So we've had lots of answers. Yvonne, I don't know if you had a chance to look through these.
Yeah, I'm just making a note of what we've got here.
Could I just ask a question? I'm so sorry.
Of course, go ahead.
I'm not able to see the full screen. I don't know whether it's my end or is anyone else having the same problem. I can see everyone's faces, but I can't see what the actual slide.
You should be able to. It might be the configuration that you've got on your view. So if you maybe go to speaker view,
Okay. Oh, speaker
and
view.
that might help. Has that helped, Anita?
No, it hasn't. It's just I can only see part of the screen. Okay. I'll try and see what I can do. Yeah, don't worry.
Anita, we can't hear you. Do you want to type in the chat function?
Can you hear me when I speak through this?
Just about.
Okay, I'll use the chat function.
Yvonne, I'm just looking through these. Some of them I know we will be coming to at some point,
Yeah.
but maybe we can look at those that we're not necessarily planning to come to and maybe address them right now.
Yes.
Um,
There's a lot around the delivery of the workshop.
yeah. So I think
technology.
So there was a lovely video that one of our colleagues, Naomi, put together about how to use Microsoft Teams. So that's a really good starting point on how to use it, how to screen share and so on. Layla's going to kindly go over a little bit about how to, so Microsoft Teams doesn't currently have the function for breakout rooms, but she's got a workaround that she can suggest for you in order to encourage the students to work in small groups, and then you can bring them back together.
Yeah.
Teaching clinic we are going to talk about later. Feeling supported, we really hope that we are going to help you feel supported and as best we can, but that support is ongoing throughout the year. It's not just about today. And then more confidence in how the patient factors worked for others. So I think this really signposts to me, Yvonne, this idea that we were thinking about doing a bit of a buddying system, particularly between tutors and experienced tutors. We still haven't quite worked out the best way to do that. But perhaps one way would be for those of you that would be interested in a buddying system to email us, and then we can do some pairings for you. What do you think, Yvonne?
Yeah, definitely. I think if you let us know via the WhatsApp group or even by email, I think we could definitely look at the buddy system. And we are looking to put on some more sessions this year, aren't we, to support the tutors. So perhaps we could do a session on support for you, and just running the programme. I'm noticing quite a lot around the structure of the day, workshop plans, how to engage the students. So we could definitely give you more input on that.
Yeah, and maybe what we can do, Yvonne, is we can come back to this slide towards the end of the day and see what we haven't actually covered by that point.
Yes,
Can we do that?
Yes.
Thank you so much. That's really helpful for us to get a real sense of you know, what you're wanting to get out today and how we can help, and we'll do our best to cover as much of that as we can.
Yeah, self-directed learning is another big one, isn't it?
Okay, so we're going to move on to the next one. So with respect to the workshops, how confident are you feeling about delivering these, and how clear are you about how you might involve a patient?
Lisa, we've lost your screen.
Okay, I was trying to move it somewhere, but that's okay. I'll leave it where it is. Stop fiddling around with it. So Layla, I don't know if you wanted to kind of launch in there.
Yeah, sure. So this is a scale out of 5. So we've got 2.7 for the confidence, the average confidence of about delivering the workshops remotely, and 2.4 for involving a patient. So first of all, with regards to involving a patient in the workshops, there are lots of opportunities throughout the workshops to invite patients, and again there's a lot of flexibility for where you do this, and there will be some workshops which are specifically for patients, so for example the care planning workshop, and some where, you know, when we're talking about specific patient conditions like the patient with breathlessness, for example, you may want to consider inviting a patient to that workshop ahead of it, so that the students can take a history through in the remote environment. So that does take a little bit of planning in terms of thinking which patients would be appropriate to invite to the workshop, and as you know, it might be tricky with some patients. But also, you know, that it's not just limited to patients. It might be carers that you might want to invite, or relatives, such that patients, the students can take a sort of a collateral history. In terms of in the remote setting, it's quite straightforward in that you would, when you create your link on Microsoft Teams to the workshop, you can invite a patient via their email address. So again, it would need to be a patient who would be, you know, who this would be appropriate for. Would they be able to log on? They could do it via their phone, or it could be via a computer or tablet. But would they be able to do that, essentially? And you would want to give them a specific time such that they could join the session. So it would take a bit of planning. In terms of sort of remote delivery, just to reassure you that the workshop plans are quite, there's a lot in the workshop plans, lots of different ideas, such that you get the students engaged, and there's lots of interactive elements as well. So there's a flexibility for you to pick and choose activities which work well, or not so well. Well, obviously you wouldn't do the ones that didn't work well, but hopefully lots of engaging and interactive activities. And again, it's a learning process for everybody. I think it's a new way of teaching for a lot of us. So it will be a sort of learning journey. And I think one of the great things is that you'll have the support of each other. So by your WhatsApp group and potentially this buddying system. So when you do get stuck, you'll be able to ask each other for help. And also we're here to support you as well.
Lovely. So here's an opportunity for you just to put any questions up that you have about workshops.
And you can feel free to ask them as well if you don't want to type it.
Yes, the thing is, I mean, I'm not sure as to how it will work remotely. I understand the use of a workshop, but face to face would be a much better way of organizing the workshop rather than remotely with the patient. I don't know. That's what.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's certainly an option. If you had a patient that's, if you're happy to have a patient in your room and you're using the usual measures that you would if when consulting face to face, and a patient is happy to come in.
Is that okay?
That would be fine.
Okay.
However, there will be patients that would be, happy to join remotely as well. I think everybody has adapted to sort of remote working. So I'm sure a lot of our patients will be quite savvy with using things.
No, you see, the thing is this. I mean, remotely is fine. Maybe there can be some history taking and things. Okay, but to demonstrate clinical signs and symptoms, okay. To understand the symptoms and to demonstrate clinical signs, that's even we as experienced GP struggle over the phone.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So history taking is all right. History taking, it can be done remotely over the video. That's not an issue. But if we are looking at developing clinical skills, that I think would not be very useful over the phone or the video.
Yes, I appreciate that. That's that is going.
Sorry, maybe I'm being a bit old-fashioned in this, but that's what I think.
I appreciate that. That's going to be a challenge. I mean, for the within the workshops, there is a focus on history taking, and as these students are quite junior, I think getting the sort of bread and butter of taking a good medical history is really, really important for this year.
Right. Okay.
So I think from that point of view, I wouldn't worry too much about that with the focus on the workshop.
Okay.
The teaching clinics will be more of an opportunity for the students to practice their examination skills, where patients are brought in face to face. But I think it's also important that this does reflect the reality of general practice at the moment. So there is a greatly reduced number of face-to-face consultations that are going on at the moment. And we are, as clinicians, are all developing our remote consulting skills as well. So, you know, in a way, it reflecting what's the current situation I don't think is a bad thing.
Layla, there's quite a few questions coming up which you might want to address. Some of them come up. I've addressed the ones that are on the chat. The ones that are on Menti, I just think you might want to have a look at those.
Yes, so are patients essential for the workshops? So again, within some of the workshops, I think it would be really useful for patients to attend. So particularly the specific conditions like the patient with abdominal pain. Again, it all depends on, you know, do you have a suitable patient with that presentation for that particular workshop? So that might take some planning in advance. So what I used to do previously is just have an idea of what I wanted to teach the students on, and if I did happen to come across a patient with that condition, I would ask them at the time, so a few days before, can they attend the workshop. But within the workshops there are backups which are inbuilt, so there are role plays that the students can do instead. So there are lots and lots of options. So it would be ideal if patients can attend where it's laid out in the workshop, but not essential. So can we add students to Teams with a case? I'm assuming that's KCL email address. So they should all be using their KCL email address, and that's how they would. That's what their sign up to Teams would be. So on non-tech, any ideas for making sure we get our most vulnerable or non-tech savvy patients involved? So I think patients who are more vulnerable, certainly, you know, relatives, a lot of my patients will have their, you know, their children around, and often we sort of speak to them on the patient's behalf. So I think, you know, if they're happy, it could be a consultation with both the patient as well as the relative or carer. Are you expecting all teaching to be done remotely? I think for the foreseeable future, while social distance measures are in place, yes. And just in the previous workshop, we a couple of tutors have very large conference rooms which could accommodate the students. But we feel that initially, to start with, while we're building the students' confidence in this new sort of working environment for them, we think it is important to really strictly adhere to the social distancing, so that they do feel confident and comfortable to be in that environment. So yes, initially it should be held remotely.
Layla, I just looked. I can group some of the questions. So there's a lot of questions about the timing of the workshop. I don't know if Yvonne wants to come in on that, because obviously Yvonne's done a lot of various plans.
I'll give you a little break, Layla. So the timings of the workshops are really good questions, but to be honest with you, we're really flexible about this during the day, because you might run the workshop in the morning, you might run it in the afternoon, you might run it at lunchtime. I think the big word here is flexibility. So we can give you a structure, an ideal, you know, like a model for the day, which could be that you have the students coming in and you do your teaching clinic in the morning and then your workshop in the afternoon, or you might decide to do it the other way around. I think it's an ever-changing program, and if it works better for you, excuse me, to do it at a certain time of day, then do it at that time of day. I think we're giving you some guidelines and some structure The workshop plans are really, as Layla said, they're really detailed, but equally, we trust you as our tutors to make the right decision with your students. I think those that have taught before hopefully would agree with that. And also, if you're not if you're not sure, you know, pop a question in the WhatsApp group or drop us an email. The workshop plan has got the aim of the session, so you'll know whether you're covering it. So I think the timings are actually quite flexible. You might decide to do it in the morning on one week and the afternoon on the following week. I think as long as you keep the students informed. And the other thing I'd say is speak to the students and see what works for them as well, so that you can work together and then you get better engagement.
What I'm going to suggest is, I'm just going to address a few questions. We do have to move on to the next thing. But the nice thing about this presentation is that we can save it. And what we might do after this, it's just occurred to me, might do an FAQ document and send it round to you, because there are some recurring questions.
Good idea.
No, Keats isn't up yet. No, patients can't consult from their own homes. It has to be done from the practice. Workshops, if you can socially distance, bear in mind there are other considerations. It's not just about social distancing in the room, it's about the students having to travel in. They might have anxieties or concerns about that. And then, of course, we still only want a maximum of 4 students in the clinical environment, certainly at the beginning. So then it's just thinking about those students travelling in just for the workshop. So it's a question of weighing that up. And there was a question actually that I will address before we move on, which was just about using the 2 students that are coming to the teaching clinic to demonstrate clinical skills in the workshop. Now, this is a question that's been raised before about whether you could actually have some of the students logging into the workshop from home and some of them actually at the practice. I think this is fine, provided you've got the right equipment for it and obviously the social distancing. So it would be very difficult if you had a little webcam attached to your computer, because you wouldn't really get the field of view. But if you've got a teaching room with a webcam that can be moved or that can zoom, where you could actually ensure that everybody's able to engage equally, so it's an equal platform for everyone, and yes, I cannot see why not. And I think it would maximise on the amount of time the student gets to spend in the practice, and might increase opportunistic learning as well. So you could put it to the students that they could actually come in physically for the workshop, and then they log in with you to that remote platform. I think the main thing to remember there is you need to make sure that you're giving the students that are logging in from home the same opportunity to engage and interact as the ones that are in the room with you. I'm really sorry to cut it there, but I think we'll need to move on to the next question now. But like I said, we'll have a look at these afterwards and do an FAQ for you. Okay, so this is the one where you're going to be timed. This is where the quiz begins. I hope you're all ready. So which of the following is not correct about teaching clinics?
Oh dear.
Oh no, that's good. Okay, and look, overwhelming correct answer. It's amazing. So, so we do recommend about 6 patients over 2 hours. The consultations do not need to be face-to-face. We've talked about it should be a reflection of what's actually happening in general practice at the moment, and trying to mix that up as much as possible would be ideal. Yes, we would like students to be encouraged to be active participants, but I'm sure those of you that ticked that one just got confused about whether we were saying if it was correct or not correct. So again, as we did before, just got an opportunity to ask a few questions about teaching clinic here. Okay, if you can't fit 2 students in a room, you can't, and they'll have to take it in turn. So you can get one student to take a history in advance, and then they swap over, and then they present that history to you in the consultation with you. No, teaching clinic is absolutely face-to-face. It's the most important, critical face-to-face thing the students are doing. Yes, it's 2 students per clinic, but like I said, you may not be able to have both of them in the room with you at the same time. Do try and identify and poach the largest clinic room. It might be the treatment room, for example, to facilitate that. Yes, 2 students can definitely see a patient together. 5 teaching clinics per year, yes. Normally I doff after patient leaves. Should I be putting a mask on again whilst in the room with students? I think it would be best to be wearing a mask while in the room with the students, yes. So if you think that students aren't going to have enough time to get home for their workshop, then you can look at the option we just discussed, which is keeping the student at the practice to engage in the workshop. But you probably need to have a chat with them about what their travel times are. As a university, you know, as a medical school, we say up to 90 minutes. So some of them could have quite considerable travel times. Would it be okay if we saw 4 patients in 2 hours? I mean, we say 6 patients. I think we need to stick with 6 patients, really, because this is, you know, their clinical opportunities are even more limited than they would normally be. Teaching clinic, no, it can't be remote. It's a critical part of the placement.
There's a question, can some of the consultations be virtual, video, telephone?
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. We'd expect it to be a reflection of what you're doing in general practice at the moment. And that students are fully expecting that, and they've had a little bit of support and teaching around remote consultation. We'd like the students to be as involved as possible. So certainly at the beginning, it might be a bit more observational, but we're expecting you to get them involved. The best feedback we get from students is when they're given the opportunity to take a history, do examination, contribute to the management plan. If they have PPE, can they sit in the room? I mean, this is a clinical consultation. Students must wear PPE when you're consulting with the patient. So yes, we would expect that. Yes, no, if they're in separate rooms, if they're having to take it in turns, then no, we don't expect 12 patients. That would be too much. It's just about maximising on the patients that do come in as much as you possibly can. Risk assessment for the student. The medical school has done the risk assessment. There are a tiny number of students that have got additional needs, and we will contact the relevant tutors about that. For the vast majority of you, that won't be something you need to worry about. It's 5 teaching clinics over the course of the placement, and yes, they can see hot patients unless that student's got a particular vulnerability, and that will have been something that you've discussed with them and with us beforehand. Layla and Yvonne, are you seeing any other burning questions before we move on? I know I can't address all of them.
No, I think
we'll move on.
I think they're repeating.
Yeah.
Okay. So another fingers on buzzers, everyone. The following are true about the patient bank. Hey, Ron. So that's good. So again, both of you have done your homework. So yeah, we say it's actually 2 patients per student pair. So it's not, it used to be 3, but we brought it down. Yes, we do want them to focus on the holistic aspects. These can be written up, and we encourage them to do so. And the patient contact, as we've kind of mentioned before, we're working on the basis of remote contact for now, but there may be opportunities for appropriate face-to-face contact as the year goes on. But again, we need to balance out the risks here. So you've got an opportunity again for free text questions about the patient bank, which Yvonne's going to field. I'm sorry we don't have more time to spend on each of these. We just are a bit tight for time.
What patients do we need to recruit? So a variety of patients if you can. So those with maybe COPD, we're looking at families, mother and baby, mother and child, patients that can give the students an idea of how to manage their care holistically. So any interesting patients that you have, I think the students would value. They do follow the same patients throughout the year across the longitudinal placement. However, you can, if there are other interesting patients, they can see them as well. We do have a very comprehensive patient bank document, which will be on Keats. We are still asking pregnant ladies, yes. I'm trying to think here. Can we? Can contact me via phone. So I think, I mean, there will be some telephone consultations. I don't know what you think, Lisa, but we do know that there will be some telephone consultations. And I think the other way is how we frame it to students and how we sell it, because it is another way to learn, and they will be developing skills that other students before them haven't developed, or maybe won't develop as much. So I think if we frame it as a learning experience, then definitely there is definitely a different way to consult over the telephone.
There's just some basic questions here, Yvonne. So it's 2 patients per student pair. It's 3 contacts over the course of the year. There's lots of information on Keats about the patient bank for students and for yourselves. And no, we're not expecting students to go into patients' homes. I think that's the main thing. It might be appropriate if the students become really good at taking a blood pressure, then they, you know, and the patient needs a blood pressure check and they are housebound, then you may make that judgment call about whether that student has got the skills and whether it's safe for them to go and do that. But otherwise, you know, we're emphasising remote contact. Sorry, Yvonne, I'm going to have to move on from this slide.
Okay.
Is there anything else you want to answer? Any particular ones?
I was just going to say very quickly, there's a few questions about when to contact the patient. I think if you can consent those patients before the students come and let them know, and then as soon as the patients are in your surgery in the first or second session, just let them make a, you know, contact the patient. I think the sooner the better. Okay.
There was a question in the chat. No, patients aren't paid. It's entirely voluntary. But they love it. Majority of patients absolutely love having contact. They're very isolated. So think about those patients that you think would really benefit from having some lovely students contacting them. So which of the following is false about the assignment?
Someone here is fine. Thank you very much. Yep. Thank you very much.
His MRSA was positive in the hospital.
But it became negative.
Yeah, but then...
Could you just mute your mics, please? Because we're getting some background noise. Thank you. So, Layla, did you want to come in on the GP
so which of the following is false about the GP group assignment? So we've got assessment is based on the quality of the project and is entered into the portfolio. So it's really, that's not what... Yeah, so that's the majority of you got that right. That's it's not the quality of the assessment. It's based on the reflection and the processes involved in leading to the final piece. So it's on the emphasis is on teamwork and leadership skills, and they will
go back to the chair downstairs
with
table. Can you do it for me now, please?
Should we just mute everyone?
Yeah, I'm just struggling to find that. If you've got the, if you're able to do that, Yvonne, I can't find it on my dashboard. Right.
Okay, I've just muted everyone, probably including myself.
So the other one that's true is that the students will take it in turns to attend 4 campus-based workshops, and they will be receiving support from clinical tutors and mentors for the active practice group assignment, and a group of artists involved in the clinical humanities for that assignment. So just like to welcome very quickly some questions about the GP group assignment.
I don't think we've got time to tell you more, I'm afraid, but there is a tutor handbook on Keats, and don't worry, we're going to be revisiting this at the tutor review day.
Yeah.
Active practice, yes, it is practical. I think it's just, it may be about developing remote information. It might be about signposting patients on remote platforms. It's not going to be the same as last year, but we think it's still really important.
And I think we really need to give our students credit in that they are extremely tech savvy and innovative, and I'm sure they'll find ways of doing this that we wouldn't even be able to imagine.
Definitely.
So Tuesday is doing active practice again, and Friday will be the clinical humanities. Do you want us to be as hands-on as last year? We would welcome you to be as hands-on as you'd like to be. So they will be getting a lot of support and guidance from us and the as I mentioned, the mentors, but we really would welcome your input as well, particularly with regards to your practice population, and steering and guiding them to make sure that they're on track and adhering to guidelines to our guidance in terms of the timeline. I think this is what I have least knowledge of. Hopefully you'll provide more information. Yeah.
Okay, I think we're going to need to move on. Sorry, I've just had a text message from Yvonne telling me we really need to move on. What I think we'll do actually is, why don't we bring Mentimeter to a close? There were just a couple more areas for questions, but I think actually we can come back to those if we do have time later. I think it's important we do try and stick to time, but I hope you've all found that useful. I think the first thing to say is we don't expect you to have all of it nailed at the beginning. You know, we've got some key points here which are about what you need to do in the next couple of weeks to support your students, invite them, make sure they've got the information, have your basic setup ready. So what time is your workshop? Have you set up the invitation? And have you identified which students are coming into the practice? And I think that teaching clinic, if you can get those bits sorted, the rest, like GP group assignment, assessment, portfolio, we can cover that in November when we have our teacher review day. Otherwise it will feel incredibly overwhelming for you. You don't need to be on top of all of that at this point in the year. This is, you know, really just the start, and we know there's a lot of changes as well. So be kind to yourselves, but we will also be very patient and understanding as well, as will the students. I'm just going to toggle back to our presentation to make a couple of points. Apologies, one moment, just trying to find the presentation. Sorry. Okay. Okay, can everyone see the slide that says menti.com?
We've got question 4 of 6 up at the moment.
Okay, let me just share that, change that one more time. There.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so just a very quick word about flu vaccines, and not so much that students learning how to give them, but whether the students have been vaccinated or not. It should be part of occupational health provision by the medical school, but it currently isn't, and there's lots of discussion happening at a very senior level. It seems to be a national problem. It's not isolated to King's College. We are just encouraging trusts and practices to provide them to the students where possible. It's not ideal, and we know that that's not contractual, you're not funded for it. But we're thinking about it in the interest of patient safety and protecting them from flu. It is discretionary at your end, but what we can do is, when you are training the students to deliver the flu vaccine, particularly it's going to be harder to identify patients face-to-face for them to actually practice on under direct observation. You could actually, with the 4 students that you've got in on that day, ask them to consent one another to vaccinate each other if that's something that you would be comfortable with, and the students need to be given an opportunity to decline, so make sure that they do feel comfortable. So they might have particular reasons. I mean, I can't think of many reasons why a student shouldn't be vaccinated against the flu, because I think it's a professionalism concern, but they may have had a severe egg allergy, or they might have already had the flu vaccine. So that sort of in a way kills 2 birds with 1 stone. It ensures that students are actually vaccinated, and it also provides that training opportunity. However, this is just a suggestion. We know that it's not an expectation that we can have of you, and we are searching for a more sustainable solution to that. And just a bit about self-isolation. I've seen it's come up a couple of times in the chat. There is a problem accessing tests, and it's a nightmare, particularly for people who've got young children, who bring bugs home from nursery. So from the point of view of the students, they've been advised to contact you as soon as possible if they do need to self-isolate or quarantine. Because they're not coming in every single day, you might be able to support them to swap some of their clinical sessions with one of their peers who is not needing to self-isolate. So that's something that you can look at quite flexibly. The bigger issue is really if any of you have to self-isolate. And what we would say is that obviously for the remote workshop, that's less problematic, but for the clinical aspect of the placement, that is going to be tricky. we would really encourage you to discuss this with your practice and have a backup plan. Now, if some of you are working in partnership in bodies, where there's more than one of you actually delivering this placement in your practice, so that does help to protect against some you know, vulnerabilities at your practice if people do need to self-isolate. But I think ahead. This is not a completely unpredictable situation. This could happen to many of you. So just have a little plan about what would happen if you do need to self-isolate, and there aren't going to be any easy solutions.
Okay, thank you. I know we have a few questions, Lisa. I don't know, do you want me to just carry on at the moment?
I'll have a very quick look at those questions. Can they vaccinate before the actual workshop? We would prefer them to have the workshop first, just so they are fully trained up. You could think about trying to bring that workshop a bit sooner, so have a look at the content of the workshops. Recording of the flu vaccine. So you could, I think there's two ends of the spectrum. One is you don't record anything. The other is that you create a temporary record for each student and you record it there. From my recollection of having been a member of staff in hospital, what they've done is they've taken down your name, your contact details and batch number, and I think if you had documentation of which students had been vaccinated at the practice and what the batch number was, that is probably going to be sufficient. But if you do want to go belt and braces, then temporary records for all the students, and there's an opportunity for the students to then learn about documentation, so they can document into each other's records about the fact they've administered that flu vaccine. So I hope that answers those questions. Yvonne, I'll hand over to you.
Okay, thank you. So just a few words about Keats. Basically, I've done a few screenshots just to hopefully guide you through the process of accessing Keats. And I know those of you that have used Keats before, hopefully you can help the new tutors. There isn't too much that has changed on Keats, to be honest. And this is just the front page, just to show you when you access Keats. This is what you'll see. This is my page, so I have all the previous years. So you just click onto the longitudinal placement 20 to 21. And then that takes you then to this screen, which is the next slide, please.
Yep, sorry, Ron.
Thank you. And this is what you'll see when you arrive on the page. Sorry.
Is this the correct page?
No. If you, oops, no, go back. Yes, yep, no.
Right.
No. That's it. Lovely, thank you. So this is what you'll see, and this really outlines the programme for you in terms of the weeks. There's a tutor.
Oh, sorry, Yvonne, my apologies.
There's a tutor area which will have your attendance registers, which we ask you to complete every week. I'll show you a screen on that in a minute. And I think the big thing here is just to try and familiarise yourself with Keats. It's not always very easy to navigate, but hopefully we've made it even easier this year. And as you can see, it kind of speaks for itself, this screen. So have a play around with it. It will be going live. I'm saying this now. It should be going live by tomorrow morning. So there'll be a big fanfare, so listen out for it. And then you'll be able to access, and we'll have the first few workshop plans on there and some other information. So if I take you to the next screen, this is what you'll see when you click on one of those tabs that says weeks 1 to 11, for example. You'll see that every section is broken down into each week and what you need to cover. So there'll be a workshop plan. If Layla has put any assignments in there, there'll be assignments, and then we have a whole list of resources for the students to access. Students also have their own workshop summary, which will be in their section on Keats as well. And then this is the page that you'll see for attendance recording, and we'd ask you to there's a Tuesday and Friday. As we speak, all of your student names are being uploaded into this section, and it should be quite easy for you to click on that link and then just make a note of who has attended that day. There's also a comments box if you want to record anything, if that's useful. If you're having problems accessing this on the day for whatever reason, obviously let us know, but just keep a paper record for future reference so that you can kind of go back and check who did actually attend. And then, so this is just to show you the actual register. So when you actually click on that attendance link, this green circle is what you would click on, and then it would bring you the names of your students. And it's very, very simple. You just literally click each name, whether they're present or not present. And now we can...
Well done, Yvonne. Yeah, we know it's a bit frustrating that you haven't got access to it quite yet, but once you do get going with it, you'll start to be able to navigate it. It's not the most intuitive thing in the world. Unfortunately, there's not a great deal we can do about that. It's what the university provide us with, but Yvonne's done a lot of work to try and make it as intuitive as possible. So we are about to have a break, you'll all be pleased to hear. If you could open up your chat, I've just sent you a document within the chat that I'd like you to click on and download to your desktop, and it's got 4 scenarios that we're going to ask you to discuss in your breakout rooms. So I'm just going to wait a moment for you to all do that, because what I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to put you into your breakout rooms. I'm going to suggest a 5-minute break, and then to join your colleagues in the breakout room, and then I will automatically bring you back to this main room for us to share the discussion about the different scenarios. Some of those scenarios are going to hopefully address some of the questions that you've got with the points that come out from it. And then I think, Yvonne and Layla, what might be really useful before we close today would be just to really, really touch on the basics of what we expect the first few placement days to really look like, and what really are the priorities for you to be focusing on in order to prepare for those placement days. And I hope that's going to be reassuring. So I'm hoping you've all managed to download that file. Is anyone having trouble with it?
Anita's got her hand up, actually.
Yeah.
Sorry, where do we look for the file?
Some people can't see the file.
Okay, so you need to open the chat. So you should be able to see an option for the chat, and then the file is there.
And download, yep.
And you download it, yeah.
Okay.
Sarah and Dania are also having the same problem. Are both of you able to, so you're both obviously in the chat. I'm going to send the file out again, okay?
There it is now.
Where? Yeah, no, I can't see the file yet.
We can't see it.
Okay, what I'm going to do is this then, everyone. It's a shame that hasn't worked properly. I'm going to screen share the scenarios, and perhaps the best thing to do is to take a photo of the screen. I think that's going to be the easiest thing. Bear with me one moment. Okay.
As another option, I can just see if I can copy and paste and see what that looks like.
Onto the chat?
Yeah. I can't get to the bottom of it.
There we go, we've got it. We've got
Can
it.
you all see the scenarios on the main screen now? So if you all take a photo of that, I think that's probably the easiest. I'm hoping that the font is large enough. Is that going to be okay for everybody?
Oh, can you not see it, Anita?
No.
No.
Okay.
Problem. I can't see my whole screen. I can see
Anita, I imagine there'll be someone in your group that can read the scenario out to you, so don't worry too much. I'm going to get you into groups now, so that's what I'm going to do right now. Oh, yeah. So
it's gone into the chat as well, hasn't it, Layla?
Yeah, I'm just copying each one into the chat now.
Oh, I got that.
Okay, so I'm going to send you into your breakout rooms now. Those rooms will automatically close at 20 minutes and you'll have a 1-minute warning. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to send out a message about which scenarios. There's 4 scenarios. So in each group, if 2 of you could discuss in each group, if you could discuss 2 scenarios, bearing in mind you're going to have 15 minutes, so maybe 7 minutes for one, 7 minutes for the other, and then I'll bring you all back again. But do give yourself 5 minutes. I would come back together at 4 o'clock, and then you can carry on your group discussion there. You might see us popping in and out to say hello to make sure the rooms are working okay. And do pop a message on the WhatsApp if you're having a problem at all, and I'm sure Yvonne will be happy to help.